Boruto is getting a lightsaber, and there might be nothing we can do about it. See, as we all know, Chapter 27 of Boruto's 2 Blue Vortex ended with a kind of cliffhanger. And I'm not talking about the cliffhanger that Mamushi is invading Konoha. We all knew that was going to happen for a couple of chapters now. No, the real cliffhanger that we were left with in Chapter 27 was Boruto pulling Sumire to the side and asking her to fix his chipped Kusanagi blade. However, Sumire would only be able to fix this blade after Boruto handed her the end result of the research she was currently doing. That is to say that Boruto capitalized on Kashin Koji's ability to see the future and showed her the conclusion of the scientific research she was currently doing. But what was this conclusion? What was Sumire researching? Is it something we've never heard of? Was she researching into Nue? Or was she trying to find out how to make lightsabers sustainable? Well, as crazy as that last option sounds, more and more evidence has begun to appear to support that exact claim. Because not only do lightsabers essentially exist in the Boruto universe, but Boruto has wielded one before, and Sumire might have been involved in the creation of said lightsaber. So in the next couple of chapters, things could start to get looking real sci-fi-esque in Boruto's 2 Blue Vortex. But how? How are these lightsabers created? Why aren't they used more often? And why would Sumire be looking into them? Well, today we're going to be answering all those questions and a whole lot more, because today we're talking Boruto's getting a lightsaber. But before we get to talking about the Star Wars X Boruto crossover, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you're looking for one additional NC Hammer 23 video every single week, guys, you can go ahead and find my Naruto reaction series using the fourth wall link in my description below. We're on to Kiba versus Naruto in the preliminary matches. So, the Kusanagi blade that Sasuke, I guess, kind of entrusted Boruto was chipped in Boruto's last battle against Jura. And as this is essentially the last thing that Boruto has to remember Sasuke by outside of the tree that he's wrapped up in currently, this Kusanagi blade means a massive amount to Boruto. Not to mention on account of the fact that Boruto was trained by an adult Sasuke, a lot of his fighting style revolves around using a sword. As, like it or not, Sasuke is one of the better Kenjutsu users in the Naruto universe. However, while there might have been a bunch of people that could have fixed this Kusanagi blade, we're not entirely sure how they're made. Orochimaru's probably got something to do with it. It doesn't seem as though Boruto simply wanted his blade fixed, and rather he, fully acknowledging that he had some tough fights ahead of him, wanted his sword upgraded. And it looks like that upgrade is going to happen, because not only did Boruto provide Sumire with the conclusion of the research that could have possibly taken her years to figure out, but also after he gave her this scroll and asked her to get this sword fixed in a week, Sumire not only confirmed that she'd be able to do it, but also said that the sword would be reborn into something entirely new. But what is that entirely new thing? Well, about a week ago, I hypothesized that that entirely new thing was going to have something to do with Nue, on account of the fact that while Sumire is a pretty prominent character in 2 Blue Vortex, she wasn't all that prominent of a character in part 1 of Boruto, at least in the manga. She was a very prevalent character in the anime, but that's because the anime explored Sumire's connection to Nue and the manga didn't. And therefore, if somebody asked you what was the singular biggest defining feature of Sumire, you'd probably say Nue. It's the only power that we really know Sumire has access to, and it's a massive part of her backstory. And even though Nue has never once appeared in the manga, Nue is canonized not only by the anime, as the anime is technically canon to the story, but also the light novels and the data books. Therefore, it seemed to me after finishing Chapter 27 that the only reasonable conclusion as to what Sumire could possibly be studying right now would be Nue, and that makes a lot of sense. See, because while Sumire does have the Gezo Tenno applied to her, that's because her father Tanaki put it on her. But Tanaki was a mastermind genius who worked for the Root his entire life, and therefore, even though Sumire is still able to summon Nue and control Nue kind of, there's no reason for us to believe that she had any kind of grasp of the scientific endeavors that Tanaki, her father, had to undergo in order to create the Gezo Tenno. On top of this, her father died when she was relatively young, so he probably wasn't able to show her how he accessed the underworld, why accessing the underworld created Nue, or how he was able to stabilize the summoning portal that allowed for Nue to pop between the underworld and Naruto's dimension. Therefore, if Sumire committed her life to similar scientific research as her father, with obviously a different goal in mind, I mean, she wouldn't be trying to summon Nue or Nue-like beasts so they could destroy other hidden villages, but rather so they could be used in combat against other worldly threats like the Otsutsuki. Sumire could probably figure out, if she was ever able to replicate all of her father's scientific endeavors, how to apply the Gezo Tenno to either other people or other things, like Boruto's sword. And thus we theorized in this video we made about a week ago that Boruto handed her the end result of her Nue research. And thus Boruto's Kusanagi blade would be given the abilities kind of Nue, those being chakra absorption and wood release. Two things that would be massively useful in combat with Jura. But a few days ago, somebody emailed me with what I believe to be a possibly more likely, albeit slightly less interesting answer to what Sumire is doing to Boruto's sword. And that theory stated that rather than turning this Kusanagi blade into a Nue blade, that instead Boruto's Kusanagi blade was being turned into a chakra blade. But see, here's the thing. When somebody says the word chakra blade in the Naruto universe, it could mean literally like a dozen things. It could mean a blade enhanced with chakra that increases the reach of the blade, like Asuma's chakra blades. It could mean a sword enhanced with a certain elemental release, like how people apply lightning release to their blades to increase their cutting ability. It could mean a blade made out of chakra, like the samurai from the Land of Iron use. It could even be referring to the white chakra saber that Kakashi and Sakamo Hatake used, because it was a sword that could absorb chakra and release it back at enemies in a condensed white slash of chakra. Or it could refer to a literal lightsaber. See, in the early parts of part 1 of Boruto, during the Ao arc, it was revealed that Katsuki, who was the greatest scientific mind in Konoha at that moment, had been working on a laundry list of shinobi wear technology. Now, obviously, this was a rather prevalent theme in the early parts of Boruto, as one of the first talking points in Boruto was the reveal of the shinobi gauntlet and how the shinobi gauntlet could be used to make a certain ninja seem like much stronger than they actually were. However, even though the shinobi gauntlet had been kind of shamed by the versus Momoshiki arc, that didn't stop Katsuki. And thus when Boruto and the new Gen Team 7 went to go visit the Scientific Ninja Tools department, they were not only met by Sumire, who rather than taking the Chunin exams actually decided to go work there, but were also told to try a bunch of new ninja tools that they had just developed, like gauntlets that could produce giant black spheres that were able to absorb all ninjutsu, gloves and shoes that allowed for ninjas to climb up walls without applying chakra, a glider, healing spray, and most notably of all, a chakra sword, or what we're gonna call a lightsaber, because that's exactly what it is. Now, this chakra blade lightsaber worked with a rather simple mechanic, a mechanic we've actually seen multiple times, and that is that this chakra sword allowed for somebody to funnel their chakra into it and create a blade of condensed chakra from the hilt. However, rather than needing the skill and shape transformation to turn your chakra into a blade, like we've seen from the samurai from the Land of Iron or Sasuke, simply by flipping a switch, your chakra is fired out of this hilt, and boom, you have a ridiculously powerful chakra sword. And when I say ridiculously powerful, I mean that Katsuki refers to its power as immense, and Boruto with just one slash is able to cut through almost the entirety of Ao's shinobi wear upgraded cyborgish body. Now, could he have maybe done this with a regular sword? I don't know, but probably not, because otherwise Team 7 probably would have just used a sword, on account of the fact that this chakra lightsaber had a massive drawback, and that was that the chakra expenditure in order to use this chakra lightsaber for even just a couple of seconds was so massive that could cause people like Boruto to pass out. I mean, we're talking like Basho Sen, treasured tools of the Sage of Six Paths level of chakra expenditure here. I mean, the chakra expenditure was so incredibly massive that a big part of Team 7's plan to defeat Ao was to force him to hold the chakra saber for a while. But I know what some of you are already saying, but Nick, if Katsuki was the person who made this, what does this have to do with Sumire? Well, like we've already established, long before Sumire was Amado's assistant, she was Katsuki's. And thus she has open, unfettered access to all of Katsuki's inventions. But out of all of Katsuki's inventions, the only one that we've ever seen that needs more work is the chakra sword. The jutsu absorbing gauntlets work perfectly. The healing spray heals basically all wounds. The shinobi gauntlet allows you to reproduce any jutsu at a relatively high level, but the chakra blade really was unusable. Well, to everybody who doesn't have Uzumaki blood, at least. And thus it would kind of make sense not only A, that Sumire would be working on making the chakra blade more usable, but B, that it would take her multiple years to figure something like that out. I mean, Katsuki made a fully operational shinobi wear mech suit, and even he couldn't figure out how to make this chakra blade usable. And therefore the idea that Kashinkochi would have to look into the future to find the moment where Sumire was able to make this chakra blade usable is not the craziest idea of all time. But why would Boruto need a Chakra lightsaber. Well, chapter 27 puts a rather heavy focus on the fact that not only did Boruto crack his Kusanagi blade in combat with Jiraiya, but also on the fact that the only reason that he cracked his blade was because he lost focus. And in the moment that he lost focus in this battle, he dropped his, and I just read the official translation of the chapter today while doing research for this video, so this is the first time that I've ever seen what the official term for this jutsu is. I'm gonna have to read it because I do not have it memorized. Uchiha Flowing Blade Jutsu Hagoromo. Not to completely derail this video, what kind of name is that? Uchiha Flowing Blade Jutsu Hagoromo. I get the possible connection here between the Uchiha and Hagoromo. The Uchiha came from Hagoromo, technically through Indra, but why would a jutsu about coding a blade in Chakra be named after the guy who didn't want ninju to be weaponized? And if some of you are gonna be like, oh, it's because Hagoromo made the jutsu himself, then why would it be called Uchiha style? Oh, well, the Uchiha were inspired by a jutsu used by Hagoromo. We've never seen Hagoromo use a sword. The only sword that ties its roots back to Hagoromo is the sword in Inabuko, and believe it or not, you don't need to coat the sword that's said to be able to create and destroy the entire world in Chakra so it doesn't chip. But anyways, Boruto lost concentration, and therefore Jiraiya was able to chip the last heirloom he has from Sasuke. But what if, in the future, rather than having to constantly focus on applying a jutsu to your blade to keep it sharp and to make sure it doesn't shatter mid-combat, Boruto's Kusanagi blade was constantly enveloped in highly dense chakra through the sheer flipping of a switch, not only ensuring that it always had the highest level of cutting power, but also to ensure that so long as Boruto had chakra to give this blade, that the blade itself would be safe. Now, obviously, to achieve this, Sumire would have to find a way to make the chakra blade's chakra expenditure substantially lower, something that even Katsuki could not figure out. So naturally, it would take Sumire a couple of years to crack the code. But I believe in chapter 27, when Boruto is showing off this jutsu that he uses to keep his blade sharp and safe, the chakra around the blade is specifically presented in a way that makes it seem as though it's not all that strong. It's inconsistently thick, it's wispy, it's clear, and when he shuts it off, it fades away, like the last embers of a fire. Now, this idea of chakra being applied to a blade isn't necessarily a new concept. However, this idea of the Uchiha coating their blades in chakra that isn't elemental release kind of is. And therefore, I believe that the reason that this relatively new concept is introduced in chapter 27 is to serve as a dichotomy to what the improvement is going to look like, so that we can see and understand not only how science is improving the strength of ninja and Konoha and all across the world, but also see and understand all of the work that Sumire has put in over the years. See, here's the thing. Sumire didn't partake in the Chunin exams. Sumire isn't fighting against the Shinju. And while we're told that Sumire is working with a scientific ninja tool development team, and we've seen her as an assistant to Amado, she really hasn't accomplished well, anything. And therefore, if you're Ikimoto, and you're injecting Sumire into the story more, kind of just through the medium of being a romantic interest for Boruto, it probably wouldn't be the worst idea to familiarize everybody with what she's been up to over the 3-year time skip. I mean, Sarada's been training. She's got a Mangekyo Sharingan now. She was able to kill Ryu. Himawari's been training with Kurama and has accessed some kind of Jinchuriki mode that allows her to be slightly on par with Jura. And even Team 10 has been displayed as stronger than they were pre-time skip. And therefore, it would only make sense that if we wanted Sumire to A, be seen as a legitimate love interest for Boruto, or B, just seen as a generally useful and interesting character, then her ability to break down, understand, and improve scientific endeavors from men who are probably seen as her superiors would be a great way to show her utility in this universe. That's cheating, and honestly, that's not the craziest feeling to have. A fair amount of Boruto does set up the idea of using these advanced tools as cheating, or cheating adjacent. Boruto takes the Shinobi Gauntlet into the final 1v1 matches of his Chunin exam arc, and because he's using ridiculously high-level jutsu that otherwise he wouldn't have access to, he's able to defeat Shikadai, who probably should have won against him. And thus Naruto has to step in and disqualify Boruto and strip his status as a Genin. And the sentiment that the Shinobi Gauntlets are bad is further enforced when Katsuki steps in the battle against Momoshiki, when Naruto and Sasuke have him on the ropes, and throws a bunch of useless jutsu at him that Momoshiki's able to absorb and gain all of his power back. However, the Ao arc, which a lot of people believe to be anime only, but absolutely happened in the manga, enforces the idea and therefore sets the general dogma of the Boruto story that tools don't have morality. A gun can be used to kill innocents, but it can also be used to defend innocents. A car can be used to get you to and from work, but it can also be used to drive into crowds of people. Tools themselves don't have morality. However, the people that use them do. More than that, what's established during the AO arc is that the quality of one's tools does not directly correlate to the quality of their performance. You could give me the finest carpentry tools on Earth, and you could give a carpenter a hammer and some nails, and they would probably do a better job than me. I could give you my recording equipment, and I could record on my iPhone, and I would probably make a better product than you. It's because this is what I do. And therefore, this general idea throughout all of Boruto is set up that while tools are great and can be massively helpful, honing your own craft so that you can bring out the best from those tools is the most important way to succeed. And Boruto has already been established as somebody who works incredibly hard. He spent 3 years breaking his back training not only with Sasuke but also Kashin Koji, and therefore not only perfecting everything that Sasuke had to teach him, but also perfecting jutsus that he didn't even have access to by learning about his future from Kashin Koji. Boruto trained to such a level that he was able to trounce somebody who was dripping in natural talent like Kawaki, to the point where he scolded Kawaki for not training at all over the course of the time skip. Therefore, Boruto, relying on his friend's hard work, Sumire's research into possible chakra sabers, would not only be a good way to solidify the connection between tools and hard work, but also validate all of the work that Sumire's done over the years and bring Boruto into the future, like Ikimoto and Kishimoto have wanted to do forever. Now, would a chakra lightsaber be as effective in combat against Jura as a Nue blade? No, probably not. Yes, it would allow for him to cut through all of the wood release of Jura with relative ease, and who knows, maybe the way that Sumire gets around the massive chakra expenditure of using this blade is to have the blade pull in nature energy from the surrounding areas. And therefore, as Boruto uses this nature energy powered blade, he could not only cut through Jura's wood release with relative ease, but also absorb energy from Jura's wood release, making the blade more powerful and Jura weaker. Now, I do believe this would be the most interesting way for Sumire to get around the weakness of this chakra blade, as years of research for Sumire just ending in, oh yeah, it don't use as much chakra now would be kind of boring and stupid, but who knows? What do you guys think is going to happen to Boruto's Kusanagi blade? Will it be imbued with Nue's essence, or will it simply turn into a lightsaber that sucks in the nature energy from around it? Let me know in the comments below, and to I get you down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Now, if you'll excuse me, I apparently have enough time to go on a run.